being able to continue the dialogue after today's event, you're invited to share your name and email address in the chat. You can do so publicly, or you can send it to Nora, and we will then send in follow-up email to all interested parties that would like to exchange contact details to continue the dialogue in one form or the other. A few housekeeping items before we get started. This event lasts 1 hour. We will wrap up by 1 or earlier, depending on how it goes. Event language, as you might have guessed, is English today. And we also invite you, and most of you are already doing so, to keep your camera on, even while you're eating. Maybe you want to mute yourself, but it's nice to be able to see each other as well, and we don't have a limitation on cameras that can be used. So you're welcome to join us via camera as well, even if you don't contribute as a speaker. Last but not least, today's event is recorded, so you can view, review the event, or also share the link with potentially interested parties after we're done. All right. So I'd like to introduce you to our exciting jury that we have come together today. And I'd like to start with Ans, as I learned, the Belgian way of pronouncing her name, Ans Herman from Thalwil, she's calling in today. Ans is the AVP Managing Director at MSD Switzerland. For more than 125 years, MSD has been inventing for life, bringing forward medicines and vaccines, important topic for many of the world's most challenging diseases. MSD has been a member of Swiss healthcare startups since 2018. Welcome, Ans. It's good to have you here today.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to it.
Cécile Tardy-Srinivasan, I hope this was the correct pronunciation. You're laughing, yes, but you're also nodding.
No,
all right, good sign.
That's really good.
Cécile, you're a manager at Day One Accelerator. The Day One Accelerator supports promising ventures that combine groundbreaking technologies, healthcare expertise, and entrepreneurial spirit. It's good to have you on board today. Welcome, Cécile.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
Didier Cowling also joining from Thalwil. This is a coincidence. We did not choose the jury members based on where they're sitting. Just as a disclosure, Didier is the chairman of the board at Volumina Medical and Hemotune, and also a board member and advisor in other emerging medical technology companies, and brings, just as the other two jury members, a vast amount of experience and expertise that they will be open to share today with our 3 startups. Welcome, Didier. It's good to have you with us today.
Thank you. Thank you, Olivia.
May I ask the 3 of you to just briefly introduce yourself, maybe more precisely than I just did, or add anything that I might have missed in reverse order, starting with you, Didier.
Thank you, Olivia. So very briefly, I don't know how long I've got, but I'll try to keep it within a minute. By training, I'm an organic chemist, biochemist. From the UK, from Cambridge in the UK, which I trained in the 80s. Then I moved into investment banking from the mid-80s to the mid-90s in pharma and medtech analysis at Nomura and HSBC. We formed the #1 rated team at HSBC in the early 90s in healthcare, IPOs, corporate finance, M&A, etc. Then I moved into industry in the mid-90s, joined a startup, a spin-off of Pharmacia as director of business development. Then in early 2000, I moved to Zurich, Thalwil to be precise, and started Curos Therapeutics, spin-off of the ETH, University of Zurich, focusing on protein therapeutics. We sold that company successfully 2 years later to a large Swiss private company. We then formed another company called Curos Biosurgery. That was a much longer, rockier ride. We did lots of deals with companies like Baxter and Synthes and J&J and the like. I was the CEO of that one as well. We successfully exited that in 2015 when we reverse merged into Cytos. And I retired from Curos Biosciences, the third vehicle, in 2017. Since then, I've been assisting startups. Chairman of the board of a couple, invested in several. So been in the industry, life sciences industry, medtech, diagnostics, pharma for over 30 years now. So.
Thank you, Didier. Really great to have you here. Cécile, do you want to be next?
Yeah, so as you can hear, I'm French, and based on my name, I'm married to an Indian husband. I have a background in finance. I have worked in that field for nearly 12 years for big companies such as EY and Novartis. I have actually moved to digital health and innovation 4 years ago, and I'm working a lot on projects for co-creation of solutions, be it for services or product, and helping startup and big pharma find each other, cooperate with patient association and hospital. And I joined Basel area earlier this year as a manager for Day One Accelerator. So we're focusing on healthcare innovation and more particularly on digital health, and helping the startup grow to the next level and get investable. So we're now running for nearly 5 months, and we have our upcoming demo day mid-June.
Thank you, Cécile. Great work you're doing with Day One.
I'm very happy also to see how we can collaborate across Switzerland.
Exactly, same here. Ans, you want to go next?
Okay. So yes, Ans Zerma from Belgium, northern side of Belgium on the Flemish part, so mother tongue Dutch, and I also speak French. I'm married to a French-speaking Belgian, living in Talwil since August last year when I moved to Switzerland. So as a background, I'm a bioengineer. And then after that, I did a PhD in applied economics, studying startup companies. So the topic of my PhD was actually the early growth path of startups and what makes them successful in their first 10 years. So I started at an academic career at the business school in Belgium, the Vlerick Business School. The plan was to teach there, and that would be my career. However, I missed the doing, so I went into consulting, helping startups writing business plans. And from consulting, I missed that I was most of the time on the sideline, and I really wanted to get into the doing and the execution. And I decided to join MSD, Merck, named in the US, a well-known company when it comes to invention. Science-based invention, a long history, as you said, Olivia, in inventing new medicines and vaccines. And my plan was to join for a couple of years and learn how do you commercialize that and how do you bring these great inventions as fast as possible to the market. These few years, there's been 15 years in the meantime. So I joined in 2005, 16 years in the meantime. I'm still at MSD. I'm loving it every day. I moved through different functions from marketing in Belgium and then in the US. I was in sales, I did business development, I was head of access and policy. And then before coming to Norway, I was the managing director before coming to Switzerland, I was the managing director in Norway. And then since September of this year, managing director for our human health division in Switzerland. So we're based out of Luzern. And we also have other sites here in Switzerland. We are building up an important R&D hub in Zurich, and we also have a production site in Luzern and a big international presence here. So I'm really looking forward actually to now connecting with the startup community in Switzerland. It's where my early passion is, I would say, and from an MSD point of view, I would also like to use this opportunity to just help to screen and see what is interesting and in terms of startups that are happening in Switzerland that I can connect to other parts of MSD when it comes to scouting, whether that's for our pipeline or the digital health tech startups, which can also help us with our, I would say, around the pill innovations. So I'm really happy to participate.
Very good. Thank you so much for the background, Ans, and thank you for your trust, being an institutional member of Swiss Healthcare Startups as well. It's great, and one of the goals of our association to connect institutions like MSD to startups, so the value that is being created can actually find its way to the market, to the patient, where it's actually needed. So now let's move on to the startups. Today we have 3 exciting startups that intend to save lives that will present their work today to us, starting with KomedHealth. KomedHealth is the Slack for healthcare, a simple and secure communication platform for healthcare professionals. With that, KomedHealth is dedicated to transforming healthcare communication to help doctors, nurses, and other healthcare workers to deliver the best-in-class patient care and ultimately save lives. Luisa, I see that you're already good to go. Let's hold on for just 2 more minutes. So I'll introduce all 3 startups just real quick, but you can already keep the slide there. That's wonderful. With that, I of course want to introduce you, Luisa. You're the CEO and founder of KomedHealth, and I'm super excited to hear more about the work that you're doing in about 2 minutes. I'd also like to introduce PramoMolecular, a self-delivering cRNA, which is a highly innovative class of drugs that can effectively silence disease-causing proteins, for example, cancer proteins, for the first time in lung and pancreas. With that, Pramo wants to offer patients with serious diseases such as non-small cell lung carcinoma, as well as pancreatic carcinoma, effective and well-tolerated therapies. Welcome to the south of Leipzig, not Berlin, where the offices are based, Merle-Fuchs. Last but certainly not least, I want to introduce you to 4Devices Medical and take you on just a brief journey to understand what they're doing. Imagine 3D print materials that are not printable nowadays. Then imagine to use these materials or materials that never have been used before to print 3D, very tiny objects with complex shapes. Now you have that in front of your inner eyes, and now you continue to imagine that these objects can even have a 4th dimension and can be used as medical devices to tackle life-threatening conditions. 4Devices is a smart and green solution to do so, and I'd like to welcome you, Carmela De Marco, as the CEO of 4Devices Medical, sitting in Aarau today, to today's SHS Cortex Live, and I'm excited to hear your pitch very soon as well. Startups, you are, as you know, welcome to share your screen. Luisa, you already did so. We have allocated 5 minutes per startup. I will give you a sign after 4 minutes and stop you at 5 minutes. And just a quick reminder, the goal is not particularly to raise money, but really to share the great work that you're doing and inspire the audience and potentially create interest for partnerships to continue to move your venture forward. I'll now hand off to you, Luisa. Your 5 minutes start now. Please unmute yourself.
Okay, so as fast as I wanted to be, I didn't. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for the introduction. And yes, I started this company with really the mission to help doctors save lives and basically focus on their actual work. So just to tell you about a bit of the journey, how it all started, I realized that communication in healthcare is still stuck in the 70s. Although medicine became an art of managing extreme complexity. The work tools in healthcare, they are still non-digital, non-compliant, and non-efficient, and they are still responsible for 250,000 of deaths every year in US and 1,500 in Switzerland. So for me as a founder, these numbers were shocking, and I dig deeper in the problem to really understand why this happened. And of course, as you can imagine, having all these different outdated ways of communication, so no seamless communication, leads to a lot of interruptions. On an average, a doctor gets 12 calls an hour, 80 to 90% of those are not urgent, so they can be sent to an asynchronous way of communication. Since you have a lot of shifts and different specialization in a hospital, it's very hard to identify who is responsible for a patient, and also also find the resources you need. So there is a lot of time wasted on this. And last but not least, doctors, since they have a mobile phone in their pocket, they all started to use unsecure ways of communication like WhatsApp and so on, especially for mundane tasks like taking a picture or a video of a patient to share with another colleague. So this is why we have developed our platform, which is a Slack purposely built for healthcare. And we have two modules. One is a very simple messaging platform. You can consider it as a secure WhatsApp called Comed Essentials, and can be integrated in the infrastructure of a healthcare institution overnight. So this is really our lend and expand strategy. So we are expanding with Comed Flow, which is really the real value of our product. The Slack part of our product, when we have APIs with third party providers in a hospital. So for example, electronic medical information system, scheduling system, nurse call, radiology reports, and so on. So it's not to duplicate the information from those systems, but to trigger notification every time there is a new event happening. And we contextualize the data either in the form of a role chat, either in the context of a patient-centric chat. So just in a nutshell, Comed Essential is really focused on compliance and asynchronous communication, while Comed Flow is really focused on boosting productivity, reducing the number of medical error, and ultimately saving lives. In terms of competitive landscape, we really differentiate from our competitors with our ability to integrate into all these different systems. We are purposely built for healthcare, so there are also other alternatives that are not purposely built for healthcare, and they are not able to integrate with third-party providers, which is really the value of our product. We are really easy to implement. As I mentioned, our simple product can be implemented overnight and requires almost no cost from the customer. And if we look at US competition, which are able to integrate, we do not have any legacy. So we can really integrate with potentially Microsoft, Cisco, and so on, because we build our product in a very easy, integratable way, whereas competitor comes with quite a lot of legacy. We started the company 4 years ago, and in the first 3 years, really focused on developing the product. We did a number of pilots and more than 3,500 hours on field research. And in the meantime, we have, so last year, we have really reached our product market fit. We have
1 minute to go.
2 SaaS contracts in place, one with a big hospital chain and one with the private hospitals. And we have a huge pipeline of potential customers that we are now confident that some of them we will convert in the next couple of months. So our business model is SaaS, and also we charge for the services that we are providing. And in terms of funding, we did a 1.9 million angel funding. And at the moment, we expect to be break-even in 2.5 years from now. In terms of investment opportunity, we are now raising 5.5 million, a Series A planned next year. And at the moment, we are doing a bridge of 1 million. Already half is raised, and we have 3 targets. These 3 targets would enable us to raise the Series A and achieve these 3 targets, which are basically mostly focused on implementing our product at the existing customers and pushing the sales for Comed Essentials.
Luisa, wrap up. The 5 minutes are over.
So yes, this is us, our founder. We are 2 founders. I come from a business background. My business partner is a techie. And we always say that we have the right mix of experience, and we are a team of 8 dedicated colleagues. So I'm very happy to get your questions now. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Luisa, for this wonderful presentation. Great work that you're doing. I'd like to ask Anne, going in alphabetical order with this first startup presentation, for potential feedback or questions you might have for Luisa.
So let me first start with a feedback that I totally recognize your introduction, the first slide that you used, where you said, that we are so advancing in terms of technology, but when it comes to digital and communication, the health sector is way behind. I would say I share that observation. And I would say it's really high time that we start accelerating the digitalization in terms of communication and linking data to the science that we are bringing in terms of new technology for medicines, diagnostics, etc. So I think the base is definitely a strong one. A question on the product first, and then I have other questions on the business model and how you're choosing Switzerland as a market. But let me ask one question first. You talked about integration within one hospital or healthcare provider, and that's an easy thing. What about exchanging communication and data across hospitals or between a hospital or a healthcare provider that is not part of the hospital, like a GP, a general practitioner, or a specialist based in another hospital, which I would think would become very important as there's a lot of networked care. So how easy is communication flow based on your product?
So yeah, at the moment we focus on advancing care delivery in one healthcare institution, right? I mean, I'm surprised you say it's easy to connect to these different systems, because actually this is what most of other companies cannot do. But yeah, okay. This year we would already expand our solution to connect the hospital that is already a customer with their partners. Partners can mean specialists, surgeons, cardio center, physio center, and so on, pharmacy. So this is really through the specific features of rights of what the other user, which is not part of that specific healthcare institution, is allowed to see. It will also allow them to exchange information. We are not enabling the communication between different healthcare institutions because, first of all, there are a lot of different privacy issues, and this would be something that Swisscom and Swisspost are doing with the EPD, basically. Yes, eventually we could be on top of the EPD as a part of a B2B solution on top of their platform, but we would not do the integration and the whole legal basis between the hospitals. This is, as you know, this is a huge part. But yes, we could integrate with Aksana, for example, which we are in discussions with or in talks, and we could potentially link that, yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. You said you have some questions on the business model, so.
Yeah, I can go there, or maybe I'll leave the floor first for other juries, but I definitely want to, if I can continue.
Let's do that, Ans. Let's see what Cecile and Didier have, and then check the hour, and if not, we'll take the further questions offline. Cecile, you want to go next?
I had actually a question along the Ans one, because I was intrigued, looking at the product and the business model, you mentioned in B2C as a communication channel. And so I was wondering, okay, would you allow also communication between the hospital and the patient, the GP of the patient, the pharmacist potentially? How do you see it?
I think in order to succeed in this market, which is already highly fragmented, you have to be very focused and provide a clear, sharp value to your customers. I believe for us at the moment that we really focus on nailing the communication between healthcare providers, because this is what we identified as a niche and the really value providers. And there are a lot of other solutions focused on the communication per se with the patient. Now I can imagine that part of the vision of KomedHealth, once we can create this automated plugin of KomedFlow, because this is where the real value is, that, you know, our vision is we are partnered with Microsoft, and the hospital buys Office 365, and then they say, okay, I would like to use the plugin of KomedFlow. 70% of 3 or 5 integration that they are choosing, like let's say scheduling system, radiology reports, and so on, they would happen automatically. And the rest, we provide user guidelines so they can do it themselves, or we work with partners. So becoming really a SaaS platform. So this is really where we are going. We are really bringing the automation in that space of productivity collaboration. And once we achieve that, potentially we could buy or connect with a different platform or potentially build it ourselves to close the communication loop. But I believe this is such an untapped space. There are a lot of messaging platforms out there, but they don't focus on integration. They just focus on the communication. And for us, the biggest value would be this integration. And once you have an engine of automated integration with all this legacy system, then you can connect different use cases, being our proprietary platform, buying a different platform, or connecting with different partners.
So this leads to my next question, which is about the product structured. Maybe it's about technical setup, but then how do you feed back whatever has been discussed on your plugin into the system? I mean, if you have like a radiologist like commenting on a picture, and so how do you capture the feedback for the nurse or for whoever is writing the report? So the first thing is we do not duplicate what is in the electronic medical records. And also we do not share other DICOM files from radiology. What we do is, like, just to give you a specific use case, in the moment that is a new a patient in the hospital and you, Cecile, are responsible for a patient, as a treating physician, you get invited in a chat room around that patient. The nurses on the shift, they get invited. And in this chat room of that patient, you can see the context, name, date of birth, insurance model, and so on. And then every time there is a new event about the patient, you get notification. The lab result is ready. Or start to be produced. You know, as a doctor, in 2 hours, everything is done. Radiology, the CT scan has been done. Radiologist Mueller looks at the case, and you can ask, what is a preliminary result? This is a typical use case that at the moment is a lot of calls to actually just to get feedback on your actions. So it's really just a collaborative way and getting notification when information is ready, who else is involved in the patient care, putting all the care teams around the patient, right? But on the other side, we also push the information back in the system. So we pull it. This is what I told you, it's pull, like we trigger notification, and then we push it back in the system. So a nurse who actually looks into the web on the patient file, there is also a Komed chat box where all the information that was discussed around this patient exists.
Very good. Thank you, Cecile, for the questions, and Luisa for the answers. We have time for one more question or piece of feedback. Didier.
Yeah, so thank you, Luisa. I'm not an expert on software and SaaS. I'm more involved in things you can kick and touch and feel. I know that you're going to say that, you know, these things you can touch and feel, but software is not my expertise. But I have a few questions. Something that's bugged me a lot about software is how significant really a barrier to entry do you have? Because when I speak to the likes of the Googles and the Microsofts of this world, they're telling me that they're working on these types of things, right, in the background. So you have to be the first, you know, like YouTube, WhatsApp. I'm giving bad examples, but just so that we can, you know, as a concept, you know, you're the first or the best, right, in this space. I get the impression. And I know that there have been successful buyouts of companies. I understand. And so I guess what I would think is you either have to be structuring yourself so that you get bought by a big player because you've got a leading advantage, a leading edge advantage, or you blitzscale, you know, which is what some of the American software companies have done so successfully. And I don't know whether that's possible in Europe, because blitzscaling in Europe, you just don't have the access to capital that you have in the US. So I guess it's going to be try and keep ahead of the wave and then integrate into a big player, I think is probably the right thing to do. If that's the case, then you have to ruthlessly focus, right? You have to, I think, you know, try not to do too many things at once.
Exactly.
You know, does that make sense? That would be my, maybe doing that already.
Sense.
Maybe doing that already.
This makes total sense. This makes total sense. That's why I was, you know, I understood that the question is, how do you communicate between hospital? I know healthcare has so many different problems and there could be so many different solutions, but we really chose to solve one problem, which is how to make doctors and nurses more productive and have the information they need in order to reduce the number of errors. And this is like really a specific problem of course, and security, right? Because the first way of us to enter hospital is, oh, you don't want to be, how do you solve the WhatsApp problem? You need a solution, which is easy to be implemented. And whenever you have the chance, you can integrate it further with your systems. So I actually agree with you. For example, Vault, this company here on the slide, which is a US company, they raised about 60 million actually, and they got sold for 200 for $250 million after 10 years. And they got bought by Hillroom. Hillroom is a company developing beds. So what this company wanted to really connect the hospital, right? And I think normally it's not a software company, right? I mean, Hillroom is not a software company, but they have a very aggressive M&A strategy. And for us, for example, now we really focus on our own traction because we need to get to this automated level, but then we see that B2B2B will be our way to scale. So connecting with players like Microsoft, Cisco, which we have already been in touch, electronic medical record providers, cloud solution, middleware providers who basically what they do, they connect data from all these different systems. And then as an exit strategy, it could be any of those players or maybe players who want to get into this space. And this will be just an add-on on whatever they do. But I agree with you, we need to be sharp focused. That's why at the beginning of when I started 4 years ago, I saw that we would go to patient communication much earlier. Now today, I don't even have it in the pitch. I don't know if we would do it. Potentially, we will. But this is not the focus in the next 5 years.
All right. I see that there are many questions. Ant had more questions. Didier, you also mentioned at the beginning you had more. I'll need to stop at this point to make sure that the other two startups will get some airtime too, but I'd like to invite you to connect after the SHS Cortex Live, and we'll be happy to help facilitate that conversation, as I believe it might be a very valuable exchange to continue.
Sure.
Thank you, Louisa.
Thank you. I would very much value your feedback and your comments, and I think a very good discussion. I share my email here, so please feel to reach out. Thank you.
Wonderful. Best of luck, Louisa, with your venture.
Thank you very much.
All right, we'll move on. Mele, you are ready as I see. Your 5 minutes start now.
Sorry. Yeah. My name is Merle Fuchs. I'm the future CEO of PramoMolecular. I would like to whet your appetite for a highly innovative class of drugs for silencing severe diseases. As I will not be serving quite easily digestible food at lunchtime, I would be happy to send you the slides afterwards if you like to read up on anything. Our team of founders consists of 6 interdisciplinary scientists. We have all been working on silencing proteins for years, and Tobias, Rolf, and I have in addition entrepreneurial experience. We are supported by experts who are among the best in their fields. About 40% of disease-causing proteins cannot be targeted by classical pharmaceutical drugs, so-called small molecules, because these proteins lack a binding pocket for blocking the drug. Pramo develops efficient, well-tolerated drug candidates based on small interfering RNAs, as iRNAs bind specifically to their target, the messenger RNA, via Watson-Crick base pairing. If you know the sequence of the mRNA, you can rationally design the complementary siRNA. Complex of mRNA and siRNA is recognized by the RISC enzyme, which degrades the mRNA. As a result, the protein encoded by the mRNA can no longer be formed. In this way, we can theoretically silence any disease-causing protein, provided we can introduce the siRNA into the diseased cell. Unfortunately, siRNAs are unstable, electrically charged, and large. This makes it extremely difficult to introduce them into the target cells. So far, siRNAs have therefore been packaged in particles, for example, the nanoparticles as we know them from the BioNTech vaccine. However, the production of the particles is the most difficult step in the entire RNA vaccine production. Moreover, if not administered locally, the nanoparticles primarily end up in the liver. Both DTX Pharma, a Californian startup, and Pramo have developed platform technologies that allow us to couple fatty acids directly to the siRNAs and thus deliver the molecules to other tissues than the liver. However, Pramo systems are considerably simpler in design and more efficient in pancreas and probably also in the lung and DTX systems. Although we only will acquire about 50% of the capital of DTX, DTX will enter the clinical phase 5 years, we 3 years after founding. Both companies will build up a pipeline of drug candidates. DTX operates as a full integrated biopharma company. We focus on our core competencies and outsource a lot to experienced specialists. Pramo aims at the KRAS-dependent lung and pancreatic cancers. Over 30% of pancreas and over 30% of lung and more than 80% of pancreatic cancers are caused by mutations in the KRAS gene, a central control gene in the cell metabolism. These two types of cancer are among the most aggressive and deadliest of all, and most of the KRAS mutations are lacking the binding pocket, therefore they cannot be targeted by the small molecules. We want to improve the survival chances of cancer patients.
Melanie, you have 1 minute to go.
Here you can see images of lung cancer cells. On the left, you can see that the cells die if they are treated with our molecules. On the right-hand side, that they are still living. For detailed analysis, we need animal experiments, but we are still also working on alternatives, for example, in 3D printing. PramoMolecular has 6 USPs. We have the easiest self-delivering technology that allows for silencing diseases in lung and pancreas. Our initial outsourcing strategy and our focus on a widespread family of cancer oncogenes enables the development of a valuable drug pipeline against diseases with a high medical need and allow attractive revenue opportunities to be tapped with low capital requirements. DTX aims at entering the Nasdaq soon as their IPO. I think the Pfingstweidstraße 110 in Zurich is also a nice address. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Melanie. I live right around the corner
Great.
of that picture. Maybe
Hope
that's
to
a
meet
sign.
you in some years. That would be great.
Thank you for your very interesting presentation, Melanie. Maybe there will be some synergies with Carmela as well, as you mentioned, 3D printing. Let's see what happens there.
Yeah.
But at this point, I would like to pass the baton to Didier this time to start with feedback or questions for Melanie.
Very interesting. Lots of questions, but not much time. First thing is, how does this compare with Amgen's drug? Amgen's got a KRAS inhibitor, right?
Yes, they are very good. They can they target lung cancer, but they won't be able to target pancreatic cancer because pancreatic cancer is missing the binding pocket that is needed for small molecules as Amgen is using them. So we hope to find a niche, and hopefully siRNAs are also better. They don't have so many toxic side effects as chemical drugs. Okay, and so you're going to be looking at greater specificity, but don't you need to make sure that you'll get, the good thing about small molecules is they go everywhere, right? Yes.
You know
Yes.
that they're going to go
Yes.
everywhere in the body. Now that has advantages in terms of target, that has disadvantages in terms of side effects. The problem with these siRNAs and delivery vehicles is, well, it doesn't matter what vector you use, lipids, binding receptors, MABs, whatever it is you don't know whether you're going to hit the target all the time. Right?
Yes.
And in your case, you have to get to the nucleus, you have to get to the cytoplasm every time.
Yes. Yeah. We have, we are just preparing our proof of concept experiments. we want to test this in xenograft animal models, and we want to see if we can reduce tumor growth. If we don't manage to address tumors, because we didn't try to address tumors yet. We just have the in vivo proof of concept that we can silence proteins in the lung and in the pancreas. If we are not successful in tumor, we will work on infectious diseases and in metabolic diseases. But we can show that we can silence in the lung and in pancreas.
Okay, so that's the first step. You're going to see if it works in lung and pancreas in the tumors. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
But we hopefully we can show this by the end of the summer.
And what's your patent position? Is it surrounding the delivery, or is it the constructs?
We know both. Okay. It's very important that we have delivery systems to target other organs than the liver, because normally everything ends in the liver. Yeah. But we also are experienced in siRNA design and also in synthesis.
Okay, because that's key, right? That's a competitive space.
Yes.
RNA. I mean, I don't know, there must be thousands of patent estates now in that space. Yeah. Okay. I could go on, but I'll stop, let the others ask some questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Didier. Anne, do you want to go next?
Yeah, and maybe more on how you see the development of your company. You compared also to your competitor from a business model point of view, that they want to be a fully integrated company going to drug development. Where do you see yourself, and which type of partnerships are you looking for in the short term and the longer time? Which type of companies are you looking at to partner with, and which type of partnerships?
We strongly partner with a company that does our lipid synthesis, our phospholipid synthesis, and another company that is able to do GMP compliant oligonucleotide synthesis. So these are the most important partners, but we also cooperate with lots of experienced CROs and also with lots of consultants at the moment. We are on the watch list of several pharmaceutical companies that are waiting for our proof of concept, and we will enter discussions as soon as we have good data.
And what's the timing for that, you think?
Hopefully we get the proof of concept from the disease model in summer, so in autumn we will start with these kind of discussions.
Yeah.
And our idea is...
Any contacts with MSD scopes already?
Not yet, not yet. Okay. Please put us on the watch list, and I can send you some information.
Good. Mm-hmm.
Very nice, exciting times, Melly.
Yes, it is. We have no time for sleeping at the moment.
Oh, you need some, I guess. All right, Cecile, do you have feedback or questions for Melly?
Well, very exciting to see all the science and how you are trying to get to your POC. So I was thinking, okay, assuming, and that's what I wish for you, that the POC is there by summer. You are talking about financing rounds. Where would your next financing round take you as a next step?
At the moment, we are negotiating the contract with our first business angel, about 500,000 euro. And we have a funding of more than 1 million at the moment. So we want to start early phase our Series A funding in 1 year. And we are on the watch list of some family offices and also of VCs.
All right. Thank you, Melly, for your insightful presentation and the questions and feedback from the jury. I look forward to keep you on the radar and seeing where your journey is.
Great.
We'll now move on to 4 devices with Carmela De Marco. Carmela, you're welcome to share your screen if you have something to visualize. Your 5 minutes.
Hello, everybody.
We'll start now.
Oh, sorry.
Merle, you have to switch off your screen sharing. Yes, exactly. Perfect.
It's okay?
Yes.
So, good morning, everybody. My name is Carmela De Marco. I'm the CEO and co-founder of 4 Devices Medical. Our mission is to print 4 devices for medicine. The medical challenge we are focusing on is the hydrocephalus. What is a hydrocephalus? It's an accumulation of cerebrospinal fluid into the brain. Excuse me, but okay. Every year, around 200,000 babies like this are born with this condition. And just to mention the extent of this condition, I want to mention that every 15 minutes, someone in US undergoes brain surgeries related to hydrocephalus. As a consequence, the health costs are quite high, around 2 billion in US per year. The current surgical treatment consists in the placement of a shunt to drain the fluid from the brain to the belly. But unfortunately, this is a very old procedure and it needs lifelong maintenance. In fact, it has a very high risk of failure. As a consequence, children need to undergo from 2 to 3 revision surgeries in order to change the shunt, causing sufferance and scars like this. An alternative technique is called endoscopic Fervent Triglostomy. It is basically considered the gold standard, and it is a minimally invasive technique by which we can make a little opening at the base of the third ventricle in order to drain the fluid. But unfortunately, this is not suitable for babies younger than 1 year, since this opening would close again. Just to compare the aforementioned techniques in terms of probability to have no complication, I would like to show you that for the ventriculoperitoneal shunt, as you can see, the probability to have no complication is decreasing with time. So basically, children need to undergo at least 1 operation before the 8 years. Instead, for the endoscopic third ventriculostomy, there is a drop in the first 1 year, and then this probability tends to stabilize thereafter. So what we would like to do is to have a solution to act in this time window. Which is our solution? Our solution is to fabricate a 4D stent. What is a 4D stent? 4D stent basically is a stent that can change its own shape from a cylinder to a double umbrella. So it can be easily inserted through an endoscope and then it can stay in place. 4D technology means that, 4D means that the material is made of a shape memory material, which is material that can remember its initial shape. So when it is triggered by an external stimulus, such as body temperature in our case. To produce the 4D stent, we can't use current 3D printing technology because current 3D printing technology cannot print shape memory materials with complex shapes at high resolution. For this reason, we have our patented technologies. If we go back to the graph that I showed you before, we foresee that using our solution, we can shift this probability above the 80%. So what we would like to do for the future, we are looking for a seed funding of 2 million for the device optimization, the quality test, and then other 5 million for the preclinical and clinical tests. And we foresee to enter the market in 2028 and to have a revenue of 35 million for the first 2 years.
We have 1 minute left, Carmela.
Okay, so our achievement, the proof of concept, we did the first proof of concept in 2019. We registered, filed a patent in 2020. We got the third place at the Ballbrain Startup Challenge in 2020. And right now we have just been incubated at the UC Startup Center. would like also to mention the real strength of our team. I am the CEO and co-founder, and I have been a researcher at ATH. I'm specialized in polymer science and micro and nanofabrication. Gaston de Bernardis, he has a huge background in minimal invasive surgery. Gianluca Roscioli, who is a PhD at MIT, and our medical advisor, expert in endoscopic treatment. So in conclusion, we would help these children and their family to improve their lives. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much, Carmela. Congratulations for your presentation. Very exciting. Cécile, would you like to go first this time with your question and or feedback?
Yeah, thank you, Carmela, for the presentation. I was thinking if you can go back to the slide where you're saying your milestone, you have something with market research ongoing. If you can share more about
this one?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
What you are currently investigating.
Yeah, we are currently here.
Yeah.
Mm-mm. Yeah, we are looking for investors, basically. Yeah, or for other accelerating program.
But where you need support is to look for the different polymers or the materials resisting to the heat, or
no,
or testers or patients potentially. I see you are already collaborating with UKVB in Basel, so I'm happy to hear more about this.
So basically, the idea is to use these funds for to buy the 3D printers, to pay the salaries for the equipments in general. And what we would like to do is to have a very first prototype, because right now we have just a first proof of concept, but we don't have a real prototype. So what we like to do with the seed funding is to build the first prototype.
Right, Didier, your question or feedback for Carmela.
Very interesting, Carmela. The thing is that many people are working on 3D printing today, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, there's an explosion of activity in the space, because 3D printing, of course, is the future for the design and manufacture of many things in this world. What sort of, again, you may have a lead, I hope you do, but it's maintaining that lead. Mm-hmm. And so you have to make a choice again, right? You have to be ahead of the curve, or you have to be the best. And mm-hmm. I presume a company with limited resources, you have to be first, because being the best is extremely difficult, mm-hmm. given your resources. So I think you probably have to run, because the wolves are behind you. Is that a correct analysis, or have I missed something?
Okay.
I mean, you know 3D printing better than I do. I mean, there must be many groups that are working on this space, right? And so your patent will be the value that you have is in your patent, right? Mm. It's not necessarily in your approaches and your techniques, right?
Yeah. I mean, the value of our company is our technology. Our assets are the technology and also an industrial secret. So, in fact, we are also thinking to widen our portfolio, because, for example, we are aware that this is a third-class medical devices. So I don't know, maybe you can give me an advice, but we can think that the same device can be used also for other medical applications. So right now we are thinking about to widen this portfolio. And in parallel, the idea is also to create an external service for the printing, because it is true what you said, that there are a lot of competitors about 3D printing, but consider that it's really difficult to 3D print shape memory materials, that is for the print materials. That's the reason why we patented this technology, and we hope that other companies can be interested in our technology.
I would suggest, just very briefly, that you focus on one thing. It's a class 3 implantable medical device, which is going to be a permanent implant. So you're going to have to do clinical studies, and the whole dossier will be focused on, the approval will be focused on the indication, right? So nowadays, under the new medical device regulations, the actual application, the indication, the design is the product, right? And that's what you get the label for by doing all your clinical work, which will be very expensive and long-term, all this kind of stuff. So I would focus on an indication, get it approved in a specific indication, and not try and do several things at once. And it's, choosing indication is critical. It may take several months of careful work. Maybe you've done that already, but I would really urge you to focus on, if you think that, on a specific application, and there's various things that you need to consider when you choose your indication, but just focus and get that done. And then, yes, I know there's probably application in many areas, but it doesn't make sense to explore several things at once.
Okay, thank you.
With that advice from you, Didier, and us being at the hour, we're getting close to wrapping up. And I would like to invite you. Yeah, sure.
I would really love to add, because it's building on Didier's comment. Can we go back to the slide with the timeline and where you had the first investments on it? So I'm fully with Didier in terms of the execution, focus on one thing, doing it well, taking that lead will be really important. However, when I looked at the financials, 2 million funding now, 5 million in the next phase, and then you had 35 million revenues in the sales phase, not counting for the sales and marketing costs to get to this 35 million, right? So my reflection is that your early market, it's a very important one in terms of unmet medical need, as you described it. It's a very small one, it's a niche one, and it's probably a very spread one on where these needs are. So it will be pretty expensive to get to that 35 million after your initial investments. So I do think you need to have an idea of longer term potential of your technology to build the potential of a bigger cake to attract your initial investments. So, and also reflecting already on the next steps, the sales and marketing model. Are you going to build that organization yourself, or you need to start looking at potential partners to then drive that forward? But 35 million for the initial investments that you're doing, I do think you need bigger markets as follow-up review.
Okay.
Very, very valuable. Thank you so much for the feedback, Didier and Ans. Carmela, thank you for your presentation of your venture. I do invite all of you, all presenters, to reach out to Ans, to Didier, to Cécile. If you have any follow-up questions, they're super experienced, and I'm sure that they have a lot of more insight, questions, and expertise to share with you. Take advantage of that great opportunity. And with that, a few minutes after the hour, I would like to thank all of you, jury members, Ans, Didier, Cécile, and you, Carmela, Merle, and Luisa, for your time today. I am very inspired, and I hope the rest of the audience is as well. A quick information: if you are so inspired that you would like to continue being inspired, I would invite you to check out our website and participate in the booster voting for our top 5 semi-finalists that might get the chance to go to South Korea in October for a market entry camp. The voting is still open for another 2 days, and you're welcome to watch the 7 exclusive pitch videos that they developed for the booster program 2021, and then share your vote. Also, mark your calendars for the 30th of June, the next edition of our SHS Cortex Live. I thank all of you again. I wish you a wonderful, not rainy, but sunny and healthy rest of your day and week, and hope to connect with you soon.
Thank you,
everybody.
Goodbye, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.